Welcome to Amir Shakil 5858, the War and Love Report. I am Amir Goodnam.
Former President Trump and 18 others are indicted in Georgia for attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. President Biden takes his economic message on the road as questions linger about his re-election campaign because of his old age. Life in Afghanistan remains dire amid firm Taliban control and major crisis. 2 years after the fall of the American-backed government, a makeup artist says that she has no job. Possibly she might flee because there is no work, no income for her in Afghanistan. My children are hungry. For the fourth time this year, former President Trump is defending Donald Trump. Late yesterday, a grand jury in Georgia charged Mr. Trump and 18 others in a far-reaching racketeering case related to efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. On Trump's fourth indictment, let's hear a report by Lisa Desjardins of PBS NewsHour.
Today on social media, Donald Trump lashing out, calling the latest indictment a witch hunt, and promising to release his own report alleging election fraud next week.
They're trying to take Donald Trump down,
while his Republican allies rally to his defense.
This is disgraceful, it is wrong, and it is an abuse of power by angry Democrats.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy called the charges a desperate sham, saying the radical DA in Georgia is following Biden's lead. The latest charges were voted on by a grand jury in Fulton County, Georgia, late yesterday, and announced by District Attorney Fani Willis, who led the 2.5-year investigation into Trump and the 2020 election.
The indictment alleges that rather than abide by Georgia's legal process for election challenges, the defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election results.
The Georgia indictment charges Trump and 18 others with a combined 41 counts in a wide-ranging case, among them violation of the Georgia Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization, or RICO Act, often used to prosecute organized crime, soliciting a violation of oath by a public officer, filing false documents, and making false statements. Willis launched the investigation in February 2021, a few weeks after audio tape revealed Trump knew he was short of votes in the state, but asked Georgia's Secretary of State to change the outcome anyway.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes. One more than we have.
The allegations expanded to a multi-pronged criminal conspiracy, including false claims of election fraud, a scheme to appoint fake electors, tampering with voting machines, and harassment of election workers. Alongside Trump, the indictment charges several co-defendants from his inner circle, lawyers Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and John Eastman, his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, former DOJ official Jeffrey Clark, and other Georgia Republican officials. This is the fourth indictment of the former president this year, bringing the number of felony charges against him to 91. The Georgia case into election interference overlaps with federal charges brought by special counsel Jack Smith earlier this month. But the state charges are seen by legal experts as significant on their own. Unlike the DOJ case, Trump could not pardon himself or attempt to shut down the Georgia investigation if he is reelected president next year.
The grand jury issued arrest warrants for those who are charged.
In the meantime, all defendants are to surrender by the end of next week for processing and mugshots, including one to be taken of Trump. For the PBS NewsHour,
Now we discuss this indictment and the future about the Donald Trump. We are joined by Stephen Fowler, who covers politics for Georgia Public Broadcasting, and Gwen Keys Fleming, who previously served as district attorney in DeKalb County, Georgia. So thank you for sparing your time. So let's talk about the indictment. This sweeping indictment captures the breathtaking number of ways in which Donald Trump and his associates allegedly tried to overturn the election results. And in Lisa's reporting, they are charged with engaging in a criminal enterprise under a Georgia racketeering law. This RICO law was initially designed to prosecute mob bosses. Please explain why a RICO charge is an appropriate charge in this case.
Certainly. So, Georgia RICO statute is one of the greatest tools that a prosecutor has to be able to tell the whole story when you have a long list of defendants, each of whom are operating in concert towards some sort of common goal, whether it's maintaining or obtaining a part of an enterprise. And so, in this case, what the DA has done is identified several predicate acts. Those are acts or crimes that are listed in the RICO statute, such as things like false statement, false swearing, influencing witnesses, solicitation to commit forgery. She only needs to successfully prosecute 2 of them, but she's listed several, and then she has added several overt acts that are not crimes, that are not criminal, but describe the ways in which the various defendants furthered the conspiracy. And so, by doing so, these 161 listed acts, it enables her to tell the whole story of what happened so that a jury can understand it.
Stephen Fowler, one of the lesser-known aspects of this alleged conspiracy is the breach of a voting system in rural Coffee County, Georgia, that took place well after the 2020 election. And we should say these images were taken from a surveillance video on January 7th, 2021, showing a woman who's posing as a fake elector escorting a team of Trump operatives to the county elections office the same day that voting system had been breached. Tell us more about what transpired.
Right. So Coffee County, Georgia is one of 159 counties in Georgia, and it's a reliably Republican county, so the results were not in question there. But the woman you mentioned, Kathy Latham, who was the Republican county chairwoman down there and also one of Georgia's alternate electors who falsely claimed that they were an official elector, was working with the election supervisor to break down a team of people to access voting data and machines and equipment because they felt that there was evidence in there that the machines were not counting things accurately, that they were manipulated, and they were somehow taking votes away from Donald Trump and giving them to Joe Biden. None of that is true. But what happened and what we see in this indictment is this sweeping act was part of the larger scheme to keep Trump in office, and the data breach violated several parts of Georgia's computer trespass laws and got the people that actually copied the data and were involved in accessing that data as well.
Let's watch a report on Mojave by Nora O'Donnell of CBS News.
The death toll stands at nearly 100, but that number is expected to grow dramatically in the coming days. The National Guard and 20 cadaver dogs continue the painstaking search for victims in the burned out ruins. The Maui Police Department revealing just tonight that they have identified 4 victims. It's calling on family members with missing loved ones to give DNA samples. Lahaina is the hardest hit community, but right here in Kula, known as Upcountry, fires are still burning. Moments ago, we just witnessed crews putting out new hotspots. President Biden today making his first in-depth remarks about the tragedy and promising to visit. There's a lot to get to, and we have team coverage of this ongoing disaster, starting with Maui's long road to recovery. As Lahaina still smolders, it's a race to finish recovery efforts before forecasted rain, possibly hampering the search for remains. This historic town closed off, authorities warning about toxic hazards.
The fact that they're making it difficult for us to try and go back to where we're from, it's just hard and unbelievable. I mean, I still have loved ones that's trapped.
Today, officials were only able to identify 4 people using their fingerprints. But we are learning more tonight about victims found by their families, including the Tone and Takafua family. The 4, including a 7-year-old, discovered inside a burned-out car.
Just seeing dead bodies in the rocks on the beach, bodies in the car. There was a kid underneath a car on Front Street. Looked like his dad was trying to protect him, but they just was burnt.
We witnessed the devastation firsthand, traveling to Lahaina by boat, with volunteers delivering supplies. And you said there's a school right around there too?
Right behind those boats, that's the school.
And that was decimated. That elementary school is where Mindy Cherry is a first-grade teacher.
They're just ash. And then all of the classrooms, all of the windows are blown out. The roofs were just kind of tilted on the ground. Fire went through each building, so there's no windows, no doors. It's just, and every building's that way. There's nothing left.
With more than 1,300 still missing, we heard about fears that many are children.
I'm just going to be very direct with people, always. When the bodies are smaller, we know it's a child. That's one of the toughest parts of this.
President Biden today is speaking about the tragedy for the first time in 5 days.
Imagine being a mom or dad, wondering where your child is.
But in the midst of the ash, anguish, and unknown, there is still a tight-knit community.
How would you describe the heart of the people from Lahaina?
So strong. Yeah. They really care about each other and everyone. It's not just Lahaina, because now they're leaning on everybody from Maui because there is no Lahaina.
Allie Maddox runs Lahaina Grill and co-owns Hotel Lahaina. Both burned to the ground. Nearly 50 of her 75 employees lost everything.
Well, there's no way they can move back there even if the structure is standing because it's in rubble.
What's your biggest worry when it comes to all the people you work with?
I actually know that they're going to be okay because the people that work with us are strong and they love each other and everyone is helping each other. I'm so worried about all the people that we don't know about yet.
There is still just so much emotion here. There are also new questions tonight about how the wildfires began and why the flames spread so quickly across the region. CBS.
Let's watch the European view of the world this morning.
Causing civilian deaths and injuries in Lutsk and Lviv. After 2 years of Taliban rule, aid agencies warn Afghanistan's population is facing the world's biggest humanitarian emergency. Rooftops ablaze in Lviv in western Ukraine, civilian buildings targeted by cruise missiles as Russia struck targets across the country. 15 civilians were reported injured in Lviv, 4 of them hit in a kindergarten yard, according to the mayor. In the neighbouring region of Volyn in Lutsk, 3 civilians were killed by a Russian missile strike and others were injured. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited frontline troops in the Donetsk region on Monday, calling at the brigade headquarters of the Solidar formation. On the front line, Ukraine on Monday claimed some gains in the east and south, small steps forward in its grueling counter-offensive launched 2 months ago to liberate these Russian-occupied territories. Ukrainian Red Cross teams on Monday evacuated civilians living in settlements and towns close to the northeastern front line, where Russia has recently stepped up attacks amid a renewed offensive push around Kupiansk. In Moscow today, an alternative reality from the Kremlin. Addressing participants of the International Security Forum, Putin shifted the blame for what he called the ongoing conflict in Ukraine.
К чему приводит эта политика подливания масла в огонь, хорошо видно и на примере Украины. Вкачивая в неонацистский режим миллиарды долларов, снабжая его техникой, вооружениями, боеприпасами, направляя своих военных советников и наемников, делается все, чтобы еще больше разжечь конфликт, втянуть в него другие государства.
The Minister of Defense of China, Li Shangfu, who is in Russia on a visit, spoke at the conference. Talking about conflicts, Li said it's important to communicate openly and resolve differences.
无论在阿富汗、叙利亚还是朝鲜半岛、乌克兰、伊朗核问题上，中国都致力于劝和促谈，凝聚更多的国际共识。
China claims to be neutral in the Ukraine conflict, but has accused the US and its allies of provoking Russia and has maintained robust economic, diplomatic and trade ties with Moscow. A week after ECOWAS gave the green light to a possible armed response to Niger's coup, the bloc's military leaders are set to meet for 2 days in Ghana, starting on Thursday. The military junta in Niger deposed President Mohamed Bazoum and have resisted calls from ECOWAS and from the UN to restore him to power. In Niger's capital Niamey, the coup's leaders have announced plans to prosecute President Bazoum for high treason. The fire started on Monday in the eastern Pyrenees near the French border with Spain. Residents tried to protect their homes as campsites were evacuated. As hundreds of firefighters battled the blaze, some hoped for firefighting planes. In Saint-André, residents and the mayor counted the cost.
On a des maisons qui brûlent, il y a des bénévoles avec des seaux, quoi. Enfin, on n'arrive pas à les dissuader. À Saint-André, ouais.
Campers were ushered to safety, taking with them what they could.
Et surtout pour mes enfants, le moral, parce que ma fille elle a 6 ans et elle a beaucoup pleuré. On a réussi à leur sauver les doudous quand même.
The eastern Pyrenees has been in the grip of an extreme drought for many months. Its fields and forests are tinder dry. Firefighters have managed to bring the flames under control, allowing tourists and residents to return to homes and campsites.
Germany's cabinet on Wednesday is set to approve a plan to liberalise rules on cannabis. While it will still need to be ratified by Parliament, the proposal is being billed as the first step in a two-part plan for a limited legalisation of the drug. On Saturday, hundreds of people backing the step took part in the hemp parade in Berlin, an event that has taken place since 1997.
Es wird so oder so konsumiert. Die Frage ist, wenn man es illegalisiert, ist es im Schwarzmarkt, da gibt es keinen Jugendschutz, kein Dealer fragt nach dem Ausweis, während man gerade diesen Jugendschutz dann sicherstellen kann, wenn es eine kontrollierte Abgabe gibt.
If approved, it could see adults allowed to possess up to 25 grams of the drug and grow a maximum of 3 plants for personal use. It would also allow members of so-called cannabis clubs to buy it for recreational purposes. The proposal faces opposition from several quarters. A German government plane stuck on the tarmac at Abu Dhabi airport. The country's foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, was left stranded in the Gulf on Tuesday after the plane suffered a technical fault. She was heading off on a week-long trip to Australia, New Zealand and Fiji when the Air Force Airbus A340 was forced to turn around after a second attempt to fly failed. The ministry says the government fleet is at the technical level of a reputable airline, but that some planes are due to be withdrawn soon.
Von den A340 kann ich Ihnen gerne mitteilen, dass eine Nutzungsdauer Ende für September 23 vorgesehen ist und eines für Ende 24.
It's not the first time that top German officials have been impacted by problems with government aircraft, some of which are outdated. Notably in 2018, former Chancellor Angela Merkel arrived late and on a commercial plane to a G20 summit in Argentina. Open Society Foundations, the charity funded by Hungarian-born billionaire George Soros, is pivoting its focus away from European matters. It says it plans to withdraw or terminate large parts of its work within the European Union, shifting its focus to other parts of the world. The organisation supports people fighting for freedom of expression, accountable government and societies that promote justice and equality. But for some in Hungary, the decision makes no sense.
Nekem a hivatkozás az egy kicsit ellentmondásos. Az egy dolog, hogy az Európai Uniónak vannak különböző állásfoglalásai, ez más kérdés, hogy gyakorlatban hogyan valósul meg, hivatkozik a kormányoknak a tevékenységeire. Hát a magyar kormány sokat nem tesz az LMBTQ emberekért, hanem éppen, hogy ellenük tesz, de ő magában szerintem a demokrácia nem csak Magyarországon, hanem más uniós tagállamban is hát nem a legjobb helyzetben van.
It's not yet clear how or where the foundation's funds will be reallocated, but it will continue to support some civil society programs in Europe.
2 years after the Taliban came to power in Afghanistan, the need for humanitarian aid across the country has skyrocketed. However, inadequate funding is the biggest obstacle to sustaining and expanding a humanitarian response, jeopardizing a population in need of support.
We speak about 28.8 million in needs in Afghanistan, and also 60% more than 2021, and now the highest level of need in the world.
The main problem currently is the funding. So what we really need, in addition to just the humanitarian assistance, we need to have development assistance and long-term engagement to be able to set the economy of Afghanistan on the right way.
The UN is extremely concerned about the plight of women in Afghanistan. Conditions for them deteriorate day by day. Women are victims of sexual, psychological, economic and administrative violence. They're limited in their freedom of movement, not allowed to study or work, including for humanitarian organizations such as UN agencies in the country, undermining relief efforts.
Cela a un impact extraordinaire parce qu'en fait, les femmes étaient en grande partie les membres opérationnels des ONG qui venaient en aide à la population. Donc cela a fait en sorte que cette aide n'est pas délivrée à la population.
Humanitarian organizations and NGOs say the biggest humanitarian crisis on the planet is unfolding in Afghanistan, and they urge the world community not to forget about the population of this country. A tag for each plant, each the name of an owner, anxious to find their home companions in good health when they come back from holidays. Often those who go on holiday are forced to leave their pets to dog sitters or even cat sitters, but for many, leaving their plants unattended for 2 or 3 weeks is difficult too.
Estate è tempo di vacanza e per chi ha il pollice verde arriva il momento di affidare le amate piante ad amici o vicini di casa. Ma le brutte sorprese non sono rare al ritorno e quindi meglio rivolgersi a un professionista.
Enrico is a young agronomist from Bologna who turned his childhood passion into a job, and in summertime he becomes an experienced and appreciated plant sitter.
Piante che ho qui in pensione le tratto come le altre mie, quindi do fertilizzanti specifici, do prodotti specifici, do prodotti per la difesa che sono prodotti biologici e uso anche degli insetti predatori per mangiare i più comuni parassiti delle piante.
In the holidays, Enrico's terrace and house host up to 350 plants from 50 different clients, each of them with its own tag and needs. Each plant requires a specific exposure to light, nutrients, water and pruning. Often, plants that are delivered in a bad state go home completely revitalized.
Una ragazza mi portò un basilico veramente molto brutto, allora le dissi guarda, quando lo vieni a riprendere non lo riconoscerai più. Allora dopo, quando ho fatto questa prova qui, quando è venuta a riprendere, ho detto va bene, ok, ora vai a prenderti il tuo basilico, le tue piante, non le ha riconosciute.
On average, Enrico's clients bring him about 10 plants to look after, some up to 40 or 50. Requests keep pouring in, but there's no room left this year in the 5-star hotel for plants. Next year, more room will be needed.
Thanks for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I'm a good man. Thank you.